What is going on, No Horsing Around family? Back at it again. Going to talk about a variety of topics. Obviously, Darius Leonard. We're going to get into the Bills game. You obviously know him. His voice is larger than life. One Derek Larger from Bring the Juice podcast. How you doing, Derek?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. Just another day talking Colts content, man.
Absolutely, man. We know the grind is real out here, man, and you guys do such a great job over there. Hop right into it. I don't want to spend too much time on this podcast because we've covered it in two other podcasts on the No Horsing Around shows today with Kevin Bowen, and then we did one this morning on a YouTube short. But just your initial reaction to Darius Leonard. I mean, it'd be crazy not to ask you why you're on here.
Yeah, I think that, I mentioned it in the video that I did earlier today. I think we as fans have kind of cast this assumption that Darius was going to be back by now, but I guess I should say Shaquille now. I'm almost messing that up again. But when it comes to Shaquille, I think everyone was just assuming he was going to come back a little sooner than what everyone expected. And then I saw what Stephen Holder had to say on ESPN. I followed that link that he mentioned, him talking about the fact that the surgeries were a success. The Colts have said repeatedly that the pain in his ankle and his back is not the problem anymore. What the problem is getting him back into football shape. And of course, you know, the majority of Colts Nation has not seen that, and they keep thinking, "Oh my God, he's still injured. What a terrible player." I've seen it all today, so you're right. I am kind of past the point of wanting to talk about it now because, you know, a lot of Colts Nation is really just making me mad looking at it. So at the end of the day, I'm just going to continue to wait. I mean, we hope that at some point soon we'll hear something about a return.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what I would say to people is this: he's a human being with a human body, right? Like we can predict all we want, we can try to do that, but one thing I would say is don't really draw parallels to the way we handled the Andrew Luck thing, because all along Chris Ballard has been out in front and said, "I'm not putting a timeline on it. I'm going to play him when he's ready to play." That's not saying he's going to be back by the beginning of the season. Now, saying they're hopeful that he's back by the beginning of the season, that's a whole nother thing. We're all hopeful. So I'd love to see him get back by week 3 against that Kansas City, that home opener. That'd be amazing. But more importantly than anything, I just want this guy. He's a franchise player. I want him to get healthy and get back on that field. We all watched what he did last year. Was nothing short of incredible. Limping on the field, punching footballs out, intercepting passes. I mean, that just is amazing. And I don't think we fully appreciate and grasp what he did and what he played through last year. Moving on and off of that, Derek, want to get kind of into just expectations of the game against the Bills. Obviously, Frank Reich has mentioned that he may play the starters a little bit more. Are you for playing starters, against playing starters? What say you, Derek Larger?
I'm actually all for it. I know that we, as the NFL fan base and the NFL community, have always been talking about players, like starters need to stop playing preseason games. That's been the new trend over the last 10 years. People are just like, it is time to stop playing these starters. Well, the problem you have, especially with, you know, the Colts, who don't play their starters at all, really, through the majority of the preseason. Frank Reich has been saying multiple times, it's time to stop getting off to these slow starts. And for those reasons, a lot of times is because your starters are not getting any kind of game reps in these preseason games to get acclimated to the NFL speed once it gets back up to it. And then on top of it, you got this new quarterback, a new defensive scheme, a new system. Like it all needs to come together. You can only do so much in camp. And you have to get these guys involved somehow. Now, we're not saying, you know, these guys need to play the whole game. We're not even saying they need to play a half, but playing a quarter of football with some of these guys is a smart idea. Now, Frank Reich did mention there was a couple guys that will be exempt from playing in the preseason. I mean, you could probably assume guys like JT. You could assume guys like DeForest Buckner. You could assume guys like Shaquille Leonard if he ever were to come back. You know, guys like that, I would assume probably are going to be refrained from playing because they're established cornerstone guys in this league. That you might even say Quentin Nelson in there as well. But, you do need to get Matt Ryan in the rhythm with some of these receivers in a game time setting. And you need to get some of these defensive players used to this defensive system. So I'm all for it. I know Colts fans and fans in general don't like it, but I think it's smart if the Colts don't want to start off on a slow start like we have been the last 5 years.
Yeah, two things I would point out to Colts fans and just fans in general. A, injuries are a part of football, right? Like it's the worst part of football. No one likes it, but at the very end of the day, injuries are a part of football. And then on top of that, what you've been doing up until this point under the Frank Reich regime has not been working, right? Slow starts. And you might even look at it this way, Derek. You may be risking injuries just as much if you hold them out and they're not in game shape, and all of these other teams are in game shape. Like they're playing faster, they're hitting harder, and now we just haven't had we haven't calloused our body up enough. So that'd be an interesting thing to kind of track this Saturday. I'm sure you guys will be doing some sort of a live stream, or you'll have some content out, kind of track that and cover that as well over on Bring the Juice. Wanted to also ask, who's the guy or guys that Derek Larger's looking for in the preseason game? I want to see more of this. I want to see this guy. I want to see how he plays, in this system. Who are you kind of going to keep a little bit closer eye on in this preseason game?
Well, I do want to see some of the wide receivers, Alec Pierce especially. I want to see him take advantage of some of the opportunities that I'm sure he's going to get. I think you also want to look at the tight ends, right? I mean, that is a big situation there where, we saw the unofficial depth chart and that, Jelani Woods, as it stands right now, is tight end 4. I mean, that's crazy to think about, given what was said about him when we drafted him. But that's another one. And a couple of the defensive linemen that I want to see, Dio Dangbo and Ben Banogu. I really want to see those guys, and Eric Johnson. I really want to see what Eric Johnson is capable of. I have seen a few times in the one-on-ones with Eric Johnson on the field. I've seen some insane power and speed from him. I really want to see him utilize that in a game moment. I want to see that. And I also want to see Nick Cross. I'm sure Nick Cross is one of those guys that is probably going to get a lot of preseason reps. And, right now he's in the unofficial starter for the strong safety position. Of course, that's to be expected because we didn't expect Rodney McLeod to really play much. But, with Nick Cross, you want to see him do what he's doing again in a game setting. That's what all this is about. So, there's a couple guys on the defense that I can't wait to keep my eye on, and JoJo Domain as well. I want to see JoJo continue a great couple weeks of training camp and continue that in this game.
We want some more JoJo. I'm on that boat as well. Eric Johnson, speaking to him, man, nasty spin move that guy's got. Like he's a pretty different athlete. He's a unique guy on that, and it'd be really, really cool to see what he does on that line. Also, just in general, I don't know how much of a gauge you're going to get. I don't know how much people are going to play in this game as far as wide receivers go, but sticking with that group for just a second, this is going to be a key determining factor probably if Chris Ballard wants to dip his finger into the free agency pool, or if he says, you know what, we've seen enough here, enough talent that we're going to actually just roll with this and see what we can get out of Matt Ryan as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the top 4. That's really, it's all set in stone at this point. But it really is about who's going to round out the rest of the roster, right? We're talking about Kiki QT. We're talking about Desmond Patman. We're talking about guys like Michael Young Jr., who has been shining in training camp. You're looking at Isaiah Ford. You're looking at a couple of these guys that, have had strong camps. So who is good enough to round out the rest of this roster? Is it Kiki? Is it Desmond? Is it Michael Young Jr.? I mean, who in those moments makes the biggest plays? And because, like I said, we know the top end of it, but it is also going to be a question of, if only one or two guys does well, then it might impact how many guys the Colts actually keep on the active roster when the 53-man ends up getting cut down to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one guy I feel terrible about it, for is Michael Strawn. You know,
Yeah.
he was in a key situation this year, Derek, if any. He was probably going to have a chance to really like make an impact and have a chance to get on the field. And we all know that injury has held him back. I'm not even sure he gets back before training camp kind of comes up. Another thing that's been a little interesting to me in camp, at least, is that they're going with Zaire Franklin, not EJ Speed, with the first. You know, more so than not. Are you for Zaire Franklin playing with Okereke, or do you like the fact of having those two big, long, rangy guys and EJ Speed and Bobby Okereke, or Okereke, I should say, out there at linebacker?
Well, I have probably been the biggest supporter of EJ Speed in the Colts media. I have been on the record several times saying that I believe when EJ Speed's done with his rookie deal, that he's going to leave. I've been saying that because I think that he is good enough to be on an NFL roster somewhere. And I think that time is going to come at some point. So I love EJ Speed. I also like what I've seen from Zaire Franklin this camp so far. I think he's been a lot more involved. I think he's been making a lot more plays. I think I've seen him, take that next step in asserting his dominance and being confident in his abilities. I don't know. I assume he probably just got that contract and he's like, heck yeah, I'm about ready to do this now. So
Yeah.
I do enjoy the fact that, of course, like with this scheme, you could imagine there will be times when, Zaire's not going to see the field, right? But I'm feeling more and more confident in Zaire's ability from what I'm seeing in camp right now. But my loyalty, I still love my guy EJ Speed. I really can't wait for his chance if he ever gets that chance. But yeah, I'm happy with the depth that we have right now. And if we have to go into the first 2 weeks of the season without Shaq Leonard, I feel confident in this linebacker crew to get it done.
Yeah, and I mean, this might be just a kind of a testament to the regime change, right? The defensive change, because I'm not so sure that EJ Speed wouldn't have been the guy in a Matt Eberflus style of defense. And I can just think to myself, I'm a big EJ Speed fan as well. Thinking back to that Christmas game last year against Arizona and how well he played. I mean, he really came through. I think that was the game that Darius Leonard got out because of COVID. You know, he big shoes to fill. He came out and he did what he needed to do as far as that go. Another, kind of a camp battle for a starting position. You got Brandon Faison, you got Rodgers over there. I like Rodgers a little bit better. But as far as the Colts go, it looks like Faison's got the upper hand, right?
Yeah, I think that's just how it is right now. I think with Faison's skill set and his athletic figure, I think that's just what the Colts really want to use him for in this scheme. I think that Colts Nation doesn't understand that, just because Faison is cornerback 2 does not mean Isaiah Rodgers is not going to get his fair share of snaps. I think it's probably going to end up being something like 45 and 45. I think it's going to be very close. So I don't anticipate Faison getting much more snaps than Isaiah Rodgers. I think that just ultimately for the scheme itself, you want a guy like Faison who is a guy that can come up and make more plays with the athletic figure, not or with a bigger skill set. So Isaiah Rodgers has his good things that he does. Brandon Faison's a little bit bigger. So I trust the Colts in figuring out how to utilize their skill sets best in this scheme.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think one player that has really, really kind of taken the team by storm, the media by storm, is Yannick Ngakoue. I think, honestly, he may be like the most overlooked signing that we've had this offseason just because we knew we had to have the quarterback. We went out and signed the big shutdown corner. But Ngakoue, man, I mean, he is a true blue pass rusher. And he's only going to – can you just imagine him and DeForest Buckner on that side of the field? I mean – so I'm going to put you on the spot right now, Derek. Are we going over or under 10.5 sacks for Yannick Ngakoue this year? Over or under?
Oh, man, I can't even remember the last thing that I did this on. I thought I had him right at 10, So I'll probably go just under.
Just a
I
hair.
think he's right around that 10 sack area, but I think he goes just under.
Yeah, man. I mean, he's impressive. There's no doubt about it. We've needed a pass rusher for a very, very, very long time. Looks like Matt Pryor also has the upper hand out there on that left tackle position as well. Any other battles or just like some just diamond in the roughs that you're looking at saying, man, I want to know if this guy's going to make the team. Just anybody that's going to be playing late in this game, that anybody from Colts Nation, you should say, hey, just keep your eye out on this guy. Because I know you were down there a couple times, I believe, down on the field. Were there anybody that just popped out to you and you thought, man, this kid could make this football team if things fall right?
Well, I mean, I definitely was saying that with Eric Johnson. I see it now. There's no question in my mind that he has the abilities to be a backup nose tackle to Grover Stewart. I said it before, his power and his speed when he connects both at the same time. I mean, there's very few guys that I've seen just absolutely shred linemen like the way he does. I mean, it's truly a sight to behold. And we haven't seen much of Curtis Brooks. I kind of was upset by that because, we were all hyping him up when he got drafted. We haven't seen much of him yet, but I think it'll be fun to see Eric Johnson. And, I want to see more of some of these backup offensive linemen too. We're going to see Ryan Vandemark a lot in this preseason game. He's the backup to Braden Smith. So, Braden may play for most of the first quarter, but then after that, it's probably going to be the Ryan Vandemark show on that right side. So we're really going to have to keep our eyes open on Ryan and see where he stands in regards to his progress so far.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's going to be, and that's what the preseason is about. These coaches and these GMs getting a chance to evaluate the actual talent as far as it goes on the football field. It should be interesting. I really hope that we get some playing time out of our actual key players. It seems like Matt Ryan in the past has actually thrown quite a few footballs in the preseason. I know some veterans are for it. Some veterans are against it. Probably not going to see a lot out of Michael Pittman Jr., maybe just a series or two just to go out there and just kind of work on that timing as far as that goes. Another guy, before we get off here, that I'm really excited about in the way that they're using him, Derek, is Nyheim Hines. I mean, they're using him in the passing game, and he's a real weapon. I think a lot of people don't really think back to it, but he was actually a wide receiver in college as well. He did both. And running backs don't catch 35-yard fade routes very often. Like that's a unique, odd thing for a running back to do. Like that's a special quality. You're normally throwing the flats and the underneath routes and just kind of the chain movers and checking down. This guy's out here running real routes as a running back, and that could be something that could be really, really, really special. If you're a fantasy football guy, probably want to take a little flyer on him late in the draft, and you never know, he may have a big season. Just your thoughts on Nyheim Hines.
Well, I think it's hilarious that I think most fantasy apps have Nyheim Hines listed as a 10th or 11th round ADP running back right now, which is absolutely hilarious that anyone could say he's beyond that. I mean, that's crazy. But in regards to Hines, yeah, I mean, this offense needs to use him. I think that was a weapon that we did not use last year, and it cost us greatly. We saw Phillip Rivers utilize Nyheim Hines the best way possible, and Nyheim Hines turned into the best receiving back in the NFL under Rivers. And for some reason in 2021, be it Frank Reich just forgetting that Hines was there, Carson Wentz just forgetting Hines was there, they didn't use him. And it sucked because his production went down almost half. And that is just not something you can do. I understand the emergence of Jonathan Taylor has arrived. I get that. But Nyheim Hines is a special weapon. And like you said, there are very few running backs in this league that can go out for a 35, 40-yard fade route, vertical route, and come down with a catch like he can. Right? I mean, there's just very few guys in the NFL that can keep up with him. You're not going to keep a corner on him. And if you are going to send him on a vertical, ain't no linebacker in the NFL going to keep up with him. Sure. So the Colts have to be utilizing him. And I think Matt Ryan is going to figure it out very quickly. I mean, obviously, we haven't seen a ton of it in the actual training camp, but of course, you're not going to see the full playbook and everything. They're trying to look to get other guys involved. But Hines, I mean, they've talked about him differently this year. I think they understood that how negligent they were in not using him last year, and I think it's his redemption year.
Yeah, man. I mean, 100%. I just think that Carson Wentz, they lost trust as the season went, in him. I mean, Frank just didn't seem like he completely trusted what was going on. Hard to throw the football when you're throwing with your left hand too, to anybody. So that's just kind of one of those things. Before we get off here, wanted to know real quick, because it just popped in my head, is Derek Larger for or against like team practices? So like when we bring another team into to camp and say, hey, we're going to practice against each other, you think that's a good thing? Because I do. I think that's a very, very smart thing to do in modern day NFL. These teams kind of, spar in between each other. They can practice hard during the week, and it seems like they have some sort of an arrangement where they're not going to play their starters actually in the game, and they're just going to worry about the practice part of it, the structure part of it. Do you like that part of the NFL, or is that something you think, hey, I don't really like it because it causes fights, some injuries could occur, just a bunch of different variables. Just wanted to have your thoughts on that before we get off here.
Yeah, I mean, like you said in the beginning, there are chances of guys getting injured on anything. I mean, just because you bring in another team doesn't feel like it really ups the chances of somebody getting hurt that much more, right? I mean, especially when, of course, fights happen. It happens with teammates. I mean, if we're going to go all the way on fights and stuff, like let's throw shade at Michael Pittman or Rodney McLeod for throwing fists at each other, right? I mean, we said that was great. I mean, that's part of football. That's what makes football fun, is when your emotions get so high that at some point you have to let it out. And it happens. It happens in the game. I've been in fights in high school when I was a freaking football player, so I get it, right? And at the end of the day, I love that the Colts are doing it with the Lions, because I feel the Lions and the Colts are very similar in a lot of ways, especially with the locker room cultures that these teams have. They all look at each other as brothers. They would do anything for each other. They're very equipped teams. Both head coaches have tremendous respect for one another because they're both very hardworking individuals. So, I don't expect there to be any like bad blood between these two teams. I expect it to be a very productive week for them, because I think that the Lions look up to the Colts as a team that knows what they're doing. And then I think the Colts know that the Lions are an up and coming team that has a lot of talent and a lot of passion behind what they do. So I'm just going to say this: if there is any fighting going on, it's going to start from the Lions side, because the Lions have some fire going through their locker room right now. But I think it's fun. I think it is. I think that it's good for, in the sense, like you said, not really getting the game reps against them, but just kind of learning off of other players, kind of getting into the groove of being around other players. Like I said, there's only so much you can do facing your own guys, right? Yeah. Going up against other guys, that is how you pick other brains, and that's how you get better in this league.
100%. I mean, football's football, and like you said, injuries are a part of the game. It just is what it is. I mean, I think it's good for football. I think it's a smart idea, bringing those structured practices. And you're right, man. Dan Campbell is one intense coach. There's no doubt about it. I'll never forget that legendary press conference that he had, talking about, biting off somebody's foot and then all this crazy crap. But it's definitely going to be a fun year. I'm so glad that you had a chance to hop on here, Derek. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Guys, go over and subscribe if you haven't already to the Bring the Juice podcast. Check them out and give them a like, give them a follow. And as we go through the season, just stay with us. And if you haven't joined the No Horsing Around family, all we ask you to do is hit subscribe, like, share, join the family, guys. And thank you so much. Until next time.